Hello again, this is Mrs. Heinzman, and what we're going to do is talk about Crayola watercolor pencil set that they have. It's 24, and so what I did was I created a chart, and I'm going to explain the chart to you so you can understand it, so you will be able to use it. I will take a photograph of it, and I will also have it in your packet so that you can refer to it. So what I did was I created squares, and I basically did cross hatching. I was heavier on the top and lighter on the bottom so that you kind of have a transition of, light to dark, so it's a heavier contrast to a lighter contrast. So I did all of the colors, and on the second line what I did, I had another box, and I did again the cross hatching technique to create the color, and then I came back with a wet brush and I dissolved it so you could see what each of these colors would look like if you dissolved it. I did discover that salmon and peach do not hold their colors very well when you add water and dissolve them. They do not really work, so I wouldn't recommend that you use those two colors when you go to dissolve them. And then so you can see here what it would be, what your piece might look like if you wanted to use the red, but you did not want to add any water. This is the type of effect that you would get compared to if you dissolved it. And so you can see all the different type of colors that you have here. And then I ran out of room on that chart, so I have this chart. It goes all the way up to here, from the pine green to the white, and you can see that both the gray and the cool gray, kind of like what they came out, they do not give you a wide variety of browns. So if you wanted to add do the brown but add some maybe orange to it or some red to it to create more of a red brown, and that you could. And then what I did was I actually do have white here, but you can tell that because of the color of the paper, you probably can't tell that it's even there. And then what I did was I took the red and I added white, so this is red and white mixed. And then when it was dissolved, this is what it turned into. And so it's a tint. And so I did this to the white and the orange, and when I dissolved it, it probably looks better than if it was if we wanted to do a peach. I would say make your own peach. And then a shade, and that is, a shade is when you take the black and you add it to a color. And so you can see what this kind of a mix looks like. I use pine green and black, and this is what the type of effect that you get. And the blue, violet, and with the black, and with black, and with that kind of gives a little bit richer color to the black. And that, if you didn't want to use a harsh black, you could add a color to it, and that would make it look nice. Now what we want to do is kind of talk about how to do some shading. And so what I've done is, the way that I apply the color is that what I did for this chart is I kind of came in here and I just started going back and forth. I would turn it and sometimes lightly went across this way, so that we are kind of creating a cross hatch. And then I would come again on top. So it's really kind of a layering, similar to what we do when we use graphite pencils. And we're doing a lot of cross hatching to darken the value. And so if you apply more in this area, then you can intensify it so that there's more saturation of the color. So this is what I did to each one of these, and this is the technique that I did. And so what I did was I came back down here and I added some more color to it. And then what I did was I came in and I took my water and I have my sponge, and I take off just a little bit of water from it. And then what I do is I would dissolve it and kind of drag it down so that I could see what that's going to look like. Fade it out. Again, water. I would kind of take a little bit of the water off of that brush, and then I would dissolve it and kind of drag it down so you can kind of see the transition. Again, clean the brush, and then I would come in, dissolve it, and kind of drag that down so that you can kind of see what kind of effect that you get. Now what I did here was, this is no water. I just added, all I did is I just used the watercolor pencil. That is only just the watercolor pencil. And it is a matter of coming back and forth, and if you want your blue to be a little bit more intense, then you could just kind of come back and forth, do some nice cross hatching. When it means cross hatching, you're going back and forth in different angles so that you're building that up and you don't have the same direction of the colors going. So you can kind of build that up. So I did a yellow, and then I came back with red orange, and then a little bit of red down here and a little bit of violet, and I did some yellow with some green and kind of built that up. Now if you are wanting to have some color that is going to, let's take our pencil. So if I have my petal and I wanted this to be more intense, if I just do a couple layers, it's going to be not intense. But if I want that to be more intense, then I would just continue to add pressure so that it is going to be more intense. And then I can come back in with a little bit of the orange on top. I can kind of blend that. And so if I wanted only a pencil effect and no watercolor effect, then I can just build up my piece using this method. And again, I'm going to just come down here, add a little bit of red, not taking it all the way up. And then I can come in here and I'm just going to add a little bit of violet if I wanted that to be a little bit darker right in there. And then you can kind of keep working on it from there. So this is one way of building this up, similar to this effect. And again, I like to always create a chart so I can see what kind of effect my colors will have, both dry and wet. So then what I did was something that you can do is just take a piece of paper and just take the colors that you think you might use and just work it back and forth, and then take a wet brush and add to it so that you can kind of drag it down to see what kind of effect that you might get. And this is down here, this is using both the yellow and the red orange together, and then this was using the violet and the blue together to see how they kind of dissolve before I would start using them. Another thing that you can do, this is strictly taking, and what I did was I did the yellow. I actually came in and I got this wet and I added the yellow to dissolve it. And then one of the things that you can do is a couple of different techniques. You can come in if you wanted to, and you could add a little bit more after it's dried. You can also do it wet. You can, after it's dried, you can kind of come in here and you can add some more. And if I wanted maybe a little bit more yellow, I could even come in here and add a little bit more yellow and kind of go back over. And then I would want to come back with my brush and get some clean water here. And then what I'm going to do is kind of come in here and dissolve that and kind of allow it to kind of move up. If I didn't want it to bleed all the way up, I would clean my brush, take a little of the moisture out, and then come back so that that is softer up here. Then that is one technique that you can do. The other little trick that you can do is if you wanted to add something, is what I did was I came in here and This is the red right here. And what you can do, even on a little piece of paper, you just kind of come in and lay down some paint like this. And then if I wanted to, I can use it almost like it's a watercolor tray. And what I can do is come in here, whoops, a little bit too much water on my brush. So if you take a sponge, get a little bit of that water off of there so you have more control. Grab a little bit of that paint, and then I can kind of come in and kind of just very softly add some color. And if I wanted to add some more yellow, I could even come in here and add some yellow. And that's if you're wanting to kind of finish up, or you want to build up your piece using this. You can see what that does. I added more, and that's making that a little bit more intense. Grab it just like if it was watercolor that you wanted to paint with. Now, I can let this dry, and then once it dries, I can even come back and go back and even add more. But one of the things you want to avoid is working too much on top of wet paper, because what it will do is break the paper down, and that's not a good thing. So what we've done is we've talked about the 24 pack of the watercolor pencils that some of you took home that you will be able to use. And so on the next segment that I'm going to be talking about is another type of brand of colored pencils, and I'll see you then.